My family laughed at my 6-year-old's black eye and called it boys being boys, until my son calmly pulled out his phone and played the part they didn't know was recorded. The community center's lights buzzed as I taped blue and green balloons to the wall. Mason was turning 6, and I'd planned the whole thing. Dinosaur banners, party favors, a T-Rex cake, and a tiny guest list. Just my parents, my sister Brooke, her husband Jason, and their 7-year-old son, Carter. After years of keeping distance, I told myself one afternoon couldn't hurt. Mom and Dad arrived first. Mom gave Mason a quick hug and said the cake looked cute. Dad checked his watch and asked if we were starting soon. Brooke texted, running late. 20 minutes later, she swept in with coffees, still apologizing about traffic. Carter strutted beside her like he owned the room, chin up, grin sharp. Mason squealed anyway and ran to him. The boys vanished into the play area while the adults claimed seats and talked over my music. 30 minutes in, I called everyone for cake. Mason came running back and my stomach dropped. A bruise was blooming under his left eye and his bottom lip was split. A bright bead of blood at the corner. I rushed to him. Mason, what happened? My voice came out too loud. Carter stepped forward with a smirk. I taught him a lesson, he announced, proud as a peacock. Grandma and Grandpa say I'm never wrong anyway. The room went silent for a beat, then laughter popped like fireworks. Dad chuckled. Mom giggled. Brooke beamed and rubbed Carter's hair. Boys will be boys, Dad said. A little roughhousing never hurt anyone, Mom added. That's my strong boy, Brooke said, like this was a compliment. I reached for Mason again, but Dad stood up and shoved me back by the shoulder. Stop babying him, he snapped. He needs to toughen up. Carter leaned close to Mason and whispered, loud enough for me to hear. Next time it'll be worse if you don't listen. Mason froze, tears sliding down his cheeks, trying not to sob. Then Mason slowly pulled a phone from his jacket pocket. My old phone I'd given him for games. He looked at the adults, small hands steady. I recorded it, he said. All of it. Brooke's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the tile. No one moved. I grabbed the phone and hit play. The video was shaky but clear. Carter blocking the doorway, calling Mason weak, repeating the garbage he'd learned at home. How I was pathetic. How I couldn't keep a husband. How their family was better. Mason tried to back away. Carter shoved him hard, punched him, then kicked him twice while laughing. The thud of shoes on a little body filled the room. I replayed it louder until nobody could pretend they hadn't heard. Jason stood up, face red. You don't have context? Context for beating a 6-year-old? I cut in. Dad tried to regain control. Calm down, you're blowing this out of proportion. I pulled out my own phone. I'm calling the police. Chaos. Brooke lunged for my phone. Mom cried about family, Dad barked threats, Jason demanded I delete the video. Carter's smirk vanished and he looked for the first time scared. The officers arrived fast. I handed them the phone and pointed to Mason's swollen eye and lip. They watched the video twice, then separated the boys. Mason's story matched the recording. Carter's story changed until he cracked and pointed at his parents. They always say Aunt Emma is stupid, he sobbed. They say we're better. One officer looked at Mason and then at me. You can press charges. My throat burned, but my answer didn't shake. Yes, I am. Brooke screamed I was ruining Carter's life. Dad said I wasn't welcome in the family anymore. Standing in that ruined party room, I felt a strange relief, like a heavy door finally clicked shut. I wasn't welcome the day you chose Brooke over me, I told him. Today, you just said it out loud. I took Mason straight to the ER. The nurse photographed every bruise and the doctor documented his injuries. On the drive to a diner, Mason asked, Mom, did I do the right thing? I pulled into the parking lot, turned, and held his hand. You did, I said. You protected yourself, and I'm proud of you. He ate pancakes for dinner and asked for ice cream. I said yes. My phone kept buzzing with guilt trips and threats. I silenced it and watched my son breathe, safe beside me. I'd never trade his safety for their false peace again. Later that night, I packed the decorations into a trash bag and left the untouched cake behind. The next weeks were paperwork, therapy referrals, and no contact boundaries. The loudest thing in my apartment was Mason's laugh returning, one careful day at a time, and that was my real birthday gift.